Today we're talking about Baldur, the Norse god, not the person who has less hair. Now a lot of you might know him as this guy from God of War. What might shock you is he was actually known as a very peaceful man. This is his common depiction. In the Norse belief, he was known for a couple things. He is commonly referred to as the god of innocence, goodness, and beauty. But he is most commonly known for his invulnerability. Now, why was Baldur invincible-ish? Well, when Baldur started having dreams of his death, his mother, Freya, or Frigg, began personally going up to everything in existence and asking it not to hurt Baldur and make an oath. Are you gonna hurt Baldur? No? Good. Now, after a significant amount of time, she got to almost everything. Everything in existence swore not to hurt Baldur except a plant called the mistletoe. Now this is where it gets kind of funny. The gods would actually amuse themselves by throwing weapons at Baldur and watching them bounce off or just not hit it. This is where Loki comes in. If you want me to explain what happens next, like for part 2. You asked for it, so here it is. Part 2 on Baldur. Remember how I said this is where Loki comes in? Well, Loki hates watching people have a good time, so he decided to disguise himself as an old woman and talk to Frigg or Freya, depending on the text you're reading. So we asked her, is there anything you possibly missed? In response, she said, she believed the mistletoe was too small and too harmless to ask for such a promise. So of course, Loki went and made a spear out of this mistletoe. During one of the weapon-throwing pastimes of the gods, Loki gives the spear to Hoder. Hoder is blind. Loki then guides the hand of Hoder, throwing the spear at Baldur. And yes, you guessed it, it kills Baldur. Now all the gods love Baldur, so of course they were pretty upset. So Hermod, one of Odin's many sons, agrees to go to the underworld and speak to the goddess of death. Hel, of course. Now it's kind of crazy because when Hermod gets there, he finds Baldur sitting at the seat of honor next to Hel. She agreed to let him go if everything in existence mourned for him. And everything in existence did mourn for Baldur, except for one giantess thought to be Loki. Today we talk about Freyja. Freyja, goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. She was actually considered something of a party girl to the Aesir. In fact, Loki even accuses her of sleeping with all the gods and elves, even her brother. Now, that's not all she's known for. She was actually the one to bring satyr magic to the Norse gods. And of course, that brought it to humans. Now, because of her ability to manipulate other people's decisions and her knowledge on people's desires, many people agree that her knowledge goes without equal. So I know you've heard of Valhalla, but have you heard of Folkvingar? Well, she would choose half of the warriors slain in battle to join her there. Yes, that's her realm. So, now, Freya, Frigg, two separate goddesses, right? Yes, but according to a lot of text, the split of Freya and Frigg came shortly before Scandinavia converted to Christianity. Now this is where things get really interesting. Why did Freya marry Odin? Well, if you're interested, like for part 2. Oh, you asked for it. Here's part 2, Freya. Why did Freya marry Odin? Well, not many people know this, but Freya and Odin, their marriage is a hypothesis. Freya's husband was Oder. Freya was known to weep constantly for Oder because he would always be on long journeys. Odin was known for his long journeys as well. In fact, he would often be out more than he was in Asgard. So people typically link Odin and Oder as being the same person. This makes sense to me. There's a lot more to that, but I'll just keep going. Now, why did they get married? Freya was a member of the Vanir, while Odin was from the Aesir. They were at war, of course. Freya and Odin's marriage was a symbol of peace. Now, enough of Freya and Odin. Now, I'm sure you know the day of the week, Friday. Actually, it's Freya's day. And what's with Freya and cats? Her obsession with cats actually is represented by a gray cat. She would use cats to pull her chariots, and even assist her in casting spells. Whew, there's a lot about Freya. Like for part 3. Well, you no longer need to wait. Here's part 3. Freya. Let's talk a little bit more about Freya and her cats. Freya had a chariot pulled by, you guessed it, 2 cats. They are typically depicted as bluish or gray. These cats were actually a gift from Thor, Beigel and Tregel. Now, why 2 cats? Well, cats are typically associated with femininity and fertility. Actually, they've represented that since ancient Egypt. Now, if her cats represented that, then why were her cats male? Well, the idea behind that is that the cats represented male and female sexuality. Now, it's actually kind of a funny story why Thor gave Freya those cats. So, Thor was fishing. And while he was fishing, he heard a song that made him go to sleep. And then he was woken by a really irritating noise. He was upset, so he followed the noise. Then he came across a magical cat called Bayon, or Bayon. This cat was having trouble raising 2 little kittens by itself and asked Thor for help. So Thor gave the kittens to Freya.